today we're talking about events, and what I'm going to do is give a quick overview of some points about how to set up events in CiviCRM, and hopefully point out some features that you maybe didn't know about or already knew but weren't quite sure what to do with, and then just opened up to questions about anything at all that's related to the CRM. So it doesn't have to be about events, it can be really about anything. Basic outline of what I'm going to go over today, the basic steps for setting up an event, tracking who's coming and sending reminders, events with waivers because we have one now, paid events or member-only events or become a member events, and talk a little bit about tracking payment associated with that. And then also some aspects with nuances in the information you collect. And I might take those slightly out of order depending on kind of how it flows as we go through these. So step one is logging in. I've already logged in as the test chapter leader. And I've clicked, there's usually a button over here on the right that says CiviCRM, and that's taken me into the back side of the system. Hopefully, if you're at this stage, you all know what that is. So on the event side, there's two ways you can check things out. You can kind of see what's going on. Everybody is able to see all events, I think. And you can see what different chapters are doing. It can be helpful to label your events with what chapter you're in. And you've just got some basic information that's coming through on the dashboard. But we're going to start by creating a new event, which we can get to from that button or up here under Events, New Event. And the template is really not helpful, so you don't need to use that. Event type, almost everything we're going to be doing is, this is kind of unnecessary, but you have to pick something. So it's usually a meeting. There is the option for a chapter board meeting. I could probably go in and fix those if people don't like the categories, but I haven't totally figured that out yet. So participant roles, ours are almost always going to be attendees. The participant listing, and one thing that's always good to know in the CRM is that if you're not sure quite what something's offering to you, the little question marks will bring up listing of participants. So I think most of the time folks are opting to have this disabled, but if you want people to be able to see who else is coming, you can show that information. And we need to name the event. There's a lot of ones named test, but we'll call this test for office hours. And then you can provide a short description. I think that goes up at the header, and then a longer description. So office hours practice event. And this event to show off what you can do with CiviEvent. You can do all sorts of fancy formatting. I've seen some great ones where folks have been putting images in there to show what you're going to go look at if it's a tour or something. The start date is important, and I'd also recommend an end date. So today's session started at 6 p.m. Apparently my numbers buttons are not on. There we go. And it's going to end today. We'll say no later than 7 p.m. And if there's a maximum number of participants in your event, then you should set that here. One thing I will note, jumping ahead a little bit, is that if you're doing an event that's a paid event, and you've got folks that you're not sure are paying, you might, or if people might not show, I'd set the number a little bit higher. Potential. There are things to think through. So, is the event active? Yes, that's already checked for you. And then the last thing that I don't think most of us are using, although someone can correct me if you are, is actually specifying the chapter that the event is occurring in. I'm not going to set one here. That way you'll all be able to see the event when we're done. But I think if I were to set the chapter, it would restrict it might restrict the visibility. But I'm not positive, so maybe we'll try it out. This is international. So then it's going to, as you go through, if you want, it'll walk you through each of the steps. And all of them are these little gray. Every time that one of these little headers is grayed out, that means that that option has not been turned on. If it's blue, it means it's been filled in. So always, if you're happening at a location, always good to do that. That will, and I've had folks mention it'll allow you to use existing locations, which are inconveniently sorted by their address in some really incomprehensible order here. Nobody knows. but you can see that the locations are coming through, so you can probably figure out. See if we've got something for DC. We'll go to AASHTO, say. And that is save the event, and if we change something in here, it'll update it for everybody, which is what it's telling us. And then if you show the location, people will know where it is. If you uncheck that, they won't be reminded where it is when they're on to the next thing. So at this point, we can hit save. We're pretending this is at AASHTO. And then that's really that puts the event out there on the system, out there to the world. We can go to the link and it'll show it, and it'll come up on the YPT events list. But if you'd like to let people sign up for the event online, you should allow for event online registrations. And then on the page, you will see this text registration, the registration text link. It says register now. You can name it whatever you'd like. And then set the date that it's going to open up. Well, our event will say that it was actually, I let you start registering as of that time, as of the 18th, and well, the event started at 6. So the last time you can register that we know you're coming would be 5 p.m. today. Register multiple participants, let someone sign up multiple people, or can someone register multiple times from their own address? I don't think we use the pending participant expiration very much, but I think that's if they need to do something, then it'll kick them out if they don't do it, and then they have to start over. So this is good just to put a little bit of information if you need to about what's on the registration screen. And then there's a really important option down here for including the profile. And it automatically sets to your registration info. But your registration info actually doesn't tell you very much, which is going to come up when we're trying to track member registrations. I should probably just rename this one or reset the default to be something more useful. But if you click on Edit Profile here, oops, sorry. All right, don't click on Edit Profile, but I'm going to create a little cheat sheet that tells you this. What that one does, because I can see it and change it, your registration info, the only thing it asks for when you register, if you select this one, is the person's email. So if they've already signed into the CRM to register, then you'll get everything that's linked to their profile. It'll automatically populate that for them, and it's great. But we get a lot of folks that don't sign into the CRM before they start, or sign into MyYPT before they start registering, which is a problem, because then you get people registering with an email that you don't recognize, that isn't already in the system, and you have no idea who they are. So if it's just a big old happy hour, that's probably not an issue. But if you're trying to get more accurate information about everybody in the system, that one doesn't actually help you very much, which suggests that I should change it. But some of the more helpful ones here on the option is basic member information, which gets their first name, their last name, their email, their chapter, this is very important, and optionally asks them if they'd like to be listed in the directory. There's also a version that lists the directory fields, which optionally asks them if they'd like to be listed in the directory. The first name, their email, their last name, and more email options. Not as helpful. Email subscription you will not need to use. Liability we'll come up with later, but that one you won't usually use at the top. Member information is a bit more of a complete list of the basic members. We'll take some of these out of here. First name, last name, email, current employer, chapter, and options list in the directory. And then MyYPT info is a really long list of things. Probably that's what they would get normally when they come in and they have the option to edit their profile. So all of these things come up. That's an awful lot to ask for before an event. But I do think it's better than just simply asking for your registration info, because then we're only getting the email. And I'm happy to take input from folks as to whether we should change that one to include more information. It might be helpful. But in the meantime, if you're trying to actually see who's coming, I might actually tell folks to opt for the basic member information. And we can pull up. I'll pull together a list of what's everything in here. I think new individual also gives you a pretty comprehensive list of fields. It's first name, last name, and email. But the really nice thing here is that it's asking for the chapter. so that when people come in, then you won't lose them, and you'll know that they're associated with your chapter. I know, for example, we have the APA, the happy hour associated with the American Planning Association's conference in Atlanta, and we've got people registering for that on the website. And it's not asking for very much information about them. And so as I'm on the back end looking at the system, I don't know what chapter to put a lot of them in, because the only reason they're registered in there is that if they didn't fill in any other information, all we know is that they wanted to go to that happy hour. So they could be from anywhere in the country. So I'd encourage folks to include the chapter option. And all of these things will come up as populated if somebody signs into my YPT first, which could be a useful piece of information to potentially put here on the introductory text. And I'm actually going to go, okay. We're going to set this one as basic member information. And then the other thing, so let's see, we'll start with this. And one thing here that's always helpful, and I'm not sure folks are necessarily doing, and happy to get input. I haven't dug through a lot of the events to see if folks are, but when somebody, to Chris's question on creating an event, does that actually feed it directly over into the calendar? I don't believe it does. I think those two are still separate. I will make a note to check that, though. And it would be really nice if it fed straight to the calendar. But I do believe there is, see if we can get a second tab going that shows us. Yeah, so it's not tied to this. You'll notice, for example, that tonight's CRM office hours are not included here, even though I did create events for them within the CRM. The one thing that's here that I would really encourage you to use is the confirmation screen, or sorry, not the confirmation screen, the confirmation email. When somebody registers, if you don't click that button, it won't send them an automatic email informing them. I don't know why we just lost some text there, but if you want them to send an email telling them that, hey, congrats, you registered for the event, you need to put it in here. So you'll need to use one of the email addresses that's loaded into the CRM that you normally would be able to send emails from. So I'm one of the addresses that's loaded, so I can do membership at YP Transportation, I can spell it, .org. There, I don't know why. And here you can just say, thanks for registering. I'm not actually sure what happens when this does. And I encourage you always when playing with the CRM. I haven't done as much with events, so this one I'm not quite as strong in as probably some of you, except that I can see more parts of the back end. That all of this, set up the event and then go register yourself and see what the system does. And if you don't like what it does, unregister yourself and tweak the system some more and then go back in, which I'm sure is what you're doing, but always good just to remind yourself that. So now if we go to this link, it'll bring up what the event looks like to somebody in the public. So I just went to event links and then selected event info. So, oh, it says registration is closed. We should probably open up registration for this. All right, let's go back and change the date on the event till tomorrow. Okay. And then we'll let folks register until tomorrow at 5 p.m. Okay. Now let's try going to the event. So right here you can see the little summary at the top, office hours practice event, and then this is what I had put in the box below. And then it brought up our location, which I think a lot of you are familiar with. And then the chapter, I don't think that's really important because most people won't click the button. But there's the Register Now button sitting over here. And because I am signed in to my YPT, my first name is Test and my last name is Chapter Leader. And my email is connected to AGH because they set this up as the profile, and I am currently in the New York chapter. But if I wanted to register a different person, could sign somebody else up, and you can see here that it's requiring all of these options. So I could sign up my actual self, and I am in the DC chapter. And then it says, thanks for registering. Your registration has been successfully processed successfully. And into my personal email account, which I don't have up, there's now, my email's not loading, but there is now an email to me that says that I have registered for the event, which is rather nice. So now that we've had someone register for the event, if we go back, something's wrong with our link there. Okay, we go to events and we go to the dashboard. And we should be able to find, there it is, our event, because they're listed in the chronological order, test for office hours. And so looking at tracking who's coming and sending reminders, we can see that one person is listed as counted, one is registered. These numbers will sometimes not line up if someone has unregistered themselves. It's always just good to go in and see what it's saying. So the search criteria here telling me that if participant status is attended, which is anybody who's signed up gets put into that, and the various participant roles, which in this case all of them are checked, so it counts. If you wanted to see folks that have unregistered themselves, you could do canceled. If you have a bigger list and you've allowed a wait list, you can do on wait list. And then you're also getting the pending from pay later and the folks that are registered. Apparently I didn't come up. We got a visibility problem. This was going well until that didn't work. Sorry about that. We'll see if we can see me sitting on this side, and if that's where the problem is. Okay. It may be because Stephanie is in the DC chapter, and test chapter leader is located in New York, in theory. So possible downside if you have people specifying the chapter. Good for management of the database, bad potentially for seeing somebody if they're not in your chapter. Okay, so this is roughly what you would see from the other side, showing that I've registered for the event, my status is registered, my role as an attendee. If we go into, whoops, switch sides of the system. Okay. The next piece I wanted to go over really quickly, and then I see a bunch of questions here. I'll get to those as we get through. I just want to cover a couple of these things. We've set up, I'm going to go in and there's a, no, I need to find the event because it doesn't have a date. The dashboard brings up dates in chronological order. Manage events brings up everything. Lots and lots of events. Potentially. Here we go. And I believe this is the one. Oops. The wrong choice there. Don't click the name of it. It'll bring up the event. But if you go to configure, yes. So this one in online registration, which is very similar to the one that we just had. We've taken the option here of including the liability waiver. And actually, we don't need to do it that way. We'll go back to the one we created and turn that one on there. And go to the online registration, and right here is where we should select the liability waiver. And what the liability waiver does is brings up a box that people have to click yes if they want to participate in the event. So register now, test chapter leaders in New York City, liability waiver, and you have to say, I agree to the waivers. If you click the waiver, it'll bring up this box. I have yet to figure out how to reset the screen so that it's a little bit wider, but it's got all the basics in there about what we're telling people to do, and our lawyers went over this, so it pretty much has you covered. So very good to have for anything when you're going like ice skating, or please don't go riding in rodeos. Our insurance doesn't cover you for that, but ice skating, it will cover you, or any sort of tour that you're going on. So then they have to click agree to the waiver, and then hit continue, and it's processed. And now if we go back to, well, not the find participants, but the dashboard, and we head to our test for office events, we can take a look at who's registered. And I should come up now because this is the right chapter. And if you click view, that'll actually take you to the details about how the person registered, and you can see that they checked the box that says I agree to the waiver. So that's the main thing with the waiver. I hope that is useful to chapters. The next one I want to go over are paid events, or member-only events, or become a member events. The other way you can get back to it if you click on this screen is just clicking on that little wrench. And we didn't turn on fees for this event, but we could. And so we could say that it is, yes, a paid event. And that the payment processor we want to use is the credit card. If you want people to be able to pay you at the event, you can enable pay later, which you might say, I will pay at the door, for example. Pay later instructions, you know, please bring the payment with you. We take check or cash, or we'll have a square. And you would probably type that better and with less random commas in the middle. And here you can label what it is, and then the financial type. I suggest calling it an event fee, even if you're doing it as a become a member to do this. So if it's something where somebody can pay the $20 for the event, and that is effectively their dues payment, you can do either way. But if you're doing something with two price sets, where someone who's currently a member pays $10 and somebody who wants to become a member pays $20, you should use the event fee setting because it makes life simpler for national, at least, when we're trying to sort out the who paid dues to the dues payment, because then the $10 fees come up as member fees. But you can do either way. And then here you can see the different options that there are. There's pre-configured price sets, which some folks have created. I'm not sure what we can do a member-only event. Okay. So here you could do regular fees, and this could be, I've seen folks do this, I'm a member, $10. Become a member, $20. And this would also, if you had something where it was free to your members, you could just put $0 there. So now if we go to our, event links, registration test drive. Now because I've already registered. So here you can see our event fees, $20, become a member and attend. And then there's the payment option down there, and we fill this all in as you would need to. So there's your option, credit card, or I will pay at the door. And we have this waiver still turned on, which hopefully they will get to before they hit continue. And then let's get back to the events. Actually might go take a look at another event that I know is taking money right now. Let's see if we can take a look at Philadelphia's event right here. So this isn't to become a member event, but you can see how they're doing that. And then And I don't know, hopefully it'll show us. I'll pull it up on the other one if we can't see it this way. Okay, we'll switch over to the other side and take a look at them over here. A bunch of folks here that have said that they're going to pay later. We could also include here the registered. And what you can see is their registered amount. So this starts to get a little bit trickier as tracking about who paid. But one of the things that we recently had added to the CRM, okay, go to over on this side because your list is shorter, is an attendee list with membership status. So this is now, when you click on that report, it brings up their status, their role, and their membership. So whether they've registered or they're no-show, and their membership status. And so if you're doing an event that is member only, so say YPT Chicago has got, so it's bringing up all of the events. So we can choose the event that this is going to show. I'll do, for example, an evening with Acting Deputy Secretary Victor Mendez, which will hopefully show up because I know we had a bunch. That was what prompted me to get the report started. We'll do it from this side. Where did the report go? So now we can see here that, so this event that was done, it was a member-only event. It was free, but you had to be a YPT member. We had a few folks register that weren't actually current members. We got a few of them to sign up. We can see there's a few new ones. This event was recent enough that new members are all correct. But you can see here, there's one thing to note on this report, that we've got folks that show up as expired. Well, first off, here's an example of why you maybe don't want to just use my registration information, because I have no idea who BET1504@yahoo.com is, and no way to know if they're, how to link them up with another record, because they're not otherwise in the database by that email. But Alex Bond here is someone who I'm fairly certain is actually a member. Oops, wrong button. Click. Sorry, that didn't go as planned. I just need to get to Alex's record. And the system is thinking. But what I'm trying to get at is that expired, there's a funny way that the system reads the membership statuses, and if someone had a membership that expired and they started a new one, for whatever reason, and I haven't been able to get the developers to fix this, it reads the expired member as opposed to the current membership. So anybody you see that comes up as expired, you should go in and actually look at their record to see if they're expired or a member. But since that's not loading, the way you get to that report is going to reports and attendee list with membership status. So if you've done an event that requires membership status, that's how you go check. And if folks are signing up and aren't currently members, so they'll show up with a blank next to their name right there, they haven't ever been a member, you should go ahead and reach out to them. After, of course, you first check to make sure that they didn't have a duplicate record in the system, at least within your chapter. If you think maybe they moved from another chapter recently and they're not connected over to your chapter, let me know. And I can go in and do the check at the national level. So the other thing is that if you have a paid event where you've said pay $20 and you can become a member, you as the chapter are responsible for going in and recording that membership. So you would go, Marla, I'm sure, Marla's probably not going to come up. Neither is Alex, I guess. But you would actually go into the person's record and that's their event right here and say I had actually paid for this event. And under memberships, you would need to go in and add membership. And just note that you don't need to record the membership payment. And you could, in this little note, you could just note that it was from the event or something like that. And the source, you should just say, event payment, credit card, or Square at event, or whatever that is. So, but yes, please record those. I try and keep an eye out for when those events are happening and remind the chapters to do that. So I think that's everything that I had for how to do the events. So I'll open up to Q&A. I see some questions are already in the box. So Chris asked if it adds it to the YPT National Calendar when you create an event, and no, because Google is separate. And Chris, on the point about that you use the yptatlanta@gmail.com for your last event, and Gmail put a phishing warning on it, there's no good solution to that. We have a little bit of a similar problem with the national ones. Gmail is just really picky about it. It doesn't like that these emails are coming out of something else, the email generator in the system. So I'd say keep using it because that's what most of your emails in the system come through. It just operates. If that's what you're using when you send mailings, if that's the email address that they come from, then I'm trying to see. It's this. I was going to next. It's this set right here. These are the ones. So if that's what YPT Atlanta comes from, then that's the one to send it from. And I don't know why the Find Participants button is broken. I wish I did. But I will make a note of that and ask the developers if they can please look into that when we do our next round of updates. Are there other questions about events or anything CRM related?
This isn't so much a technical question, but I was wondering in general if people have had success using the system, and we've been a little worried that if we switch from Eventbrite, which we've been using, our folks, our members will get a little confused by the system. We have a lot of people who come to events who aren't necessarily members. This is their first time because we're just starting out. So I'm wondering if have people run into any trouble with folks figuring out the system, or should I stop worrying?
I think, and other folks, Chris and Aaron might chime in, but like DC, as far as I know, has not had a problem with it. We got a good 70 or so people signed up for our event with the acting deputy secretary. So I think the key, and the one thing I neglected to go over when I was doing this, is also turning on the reminders. And we'll just go to any random event. And that you can set it so that people get a reminder before the event happens. So it's a little bit of the some of the same functionality that comes out of Eventbrite, and I think Eventbrite makes it easier to configure. I freely admit that, but you can turn on all the little features that allow you to get a lot of what you would get out of Eventbrite. Minus, of course, the app, which is a request that we've had that it's going to take a lot more work to try and get that in. So where you'd have the participant list come up and you could just check the names off as they came in. Right now you do need to basically print off the list before you go, or figure out how to, somebody with a good enough phone, big enough screen that you can see the list. But my YPT is not very mobile friendly. So something for a longer term fix, but it's what we've got for now. But I know New York is using it pretty heavily. As far as I know, the big chapters haven't had a problem that have been using it longer. I don't know if Chris, if you've had any thoughts on how your guys' experience has gone. But does that help, Tim?
Yeah, I think so. We just have to start giving it a shot, I think. Yeah.
I think, folks, if you just get it, if you put it up there, I mean, it's got a pretty clear button, and yeah, I can, if I can find the example from, like, Portland just did a nice one. Okay, let me try the other screen. Okay, I didn't name it that. Seattle, that was it. Helps if I get the right chapter. So this is an example of what they had done with an image inserted. It's got the map automatically loading. And then here's was YPT membership and free admission, $20, free admission, I'm a member. And they had originally classified that as member fees, and I kind of maybe didn't tell them and went in and changed it. But that's because I was the person who'd have to sort out the money later. So that event's already happened, so the registration is closed. But you can see information here, and it looks like they opted to allow people to just send them an email if they didn't want to try and sign up through the site.
Okay, thanks.
So Chris, you asked, is there a way to request additional information from people that have already signed up for events? So you're saying, for example, that if you you were doing an event with a meal and you needed to know if there's anybody who's a vegetarian. I don't know. I'm sure you've got a better example than that. But if you go into your event, you can actually send a mailing from the list. So I'll go in and do so when we did this event this evening with the acting deputy secretary, you have the option here, select, it brings up the participant list if you go to all 74 records, and then you can, oh, where is this? No, because I think this one's not the right one. How did I get to that? Okay. Well, one option is that you, I think if you do a, it'd help if you knew the name of your chapter, but I've put in the name of the chapter, the deputy event, and I'm getting back a list. This is more people than is correct, but from this search, you can do schedule or send a mass mailing. Okay, and so you're referring to the names and organizations for your APA event where you just had the email address. So step one, if the registration is still open, would be to go in and alter the records that you're collecting. And I have been going in and trying to put some of your folks into your chapter as I do my usual deduping efforts in the database, if I think they're from your area. For folks that are registered that you don't have anything else for, yeah, all these ones where you just have the email on them. You might need to go in, like I did, and do the actual search. Since the event is called APA reception, and then you'll probably want to select specific ones. So if you go to advanced search, and then go to events, and if you put the event name in as APA reception, there it comes up. Should have done that anyway. And annoyingly, this way it won't tell you much, but you could go through, and if these are the people that you're missing something from, because they don't have a name, and you'd have to just specifically select them. And then for those selected records, you could do a mass mailing to them. The other thing I'd encourage you to do if you don't need them in advance and you think people are going to come, I don't know what sort of check-in you're going to be doing at the door as people put on name tags and stuff, but you could just have the list there and ask people to put that information in at the time. Yes, and if you can only see a small chunk of the folks that are here, that's because they're not all in the chapter. So I don't know if there's an example of one that I can see that you cannot. I've been trying to do a check periodically to make sure that everybody is in a chapter. So if there's about 5 that are missing, I will move them into your chapter. I'll do another check tonight to get them moved in. This one, for example, looks like one I haven't touched in a while. Oh, that one's in Atlanta. So yeah, it probably means that they're not there. So Crystal Grants. Yeah. So she should become visible now. It looks like she's actually registered twice. And that's just something that I periodically run the checks on and add everybody to the chapters. But it's one of the reasons it can be helpful to turn on the feature that lets you get first name, last name in their chapter. It won't help you when you're running a national event like this, that you might be getting people from outside your chapter, but certainly just make sure you're coordinating with the programs person or with me at the national level if you're concerned that you're missing names off the list. So it's showing, for example, that there's 15 registered people and you can only see 10, or in this case that there's 20 and you can only see 15. We can get you the full list. Are there any other questions? I'm always here to help answer questions on the office hours or any other time. Try to be pretty responsive by email if I can. So yeah, hopefully we'll all get this under control, and I don't know, in a couple months you guys should run the webinar and explain how to do events, because I'm obviously not the most well-informed. I'm still picking up a little bit of the pieces, but I hope the waiver is useful and kind of finding out what these different options are for the registration, because I think that's important. If you have any thoughts about what your registration info, which is the default one it goes to, should actually say, let me know what you think you need the most. So, if there's any other questions, otherwise we can sign off.
Thanks a lot, Stephanie.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.